Hey y'all, I'm Slaya, and this is Introduction to Tabletops, the language. Now, there are a lot of terms that you're going to hear when you're playing tabletops. Most of them, again, people just take for granted when they're playing. But hopefully this video will explain some of these things, so when you get into playing the game, you'll know exactly what people are talking about. So I actually have a handy-dandy list over here because it is a lot of terms, and I'm not going to remember them off the top of my head. If I do, I'll probably skip something, and I don't want you to go in missing some crucial terms like RPG. And what is an RPG? It's simply a role-playing game. Now, this is a game as opposed to just role-playing, which people often think of as improv acting, and it's not that sort of role-play. There is a system that does this, but we will never, ever, ever talk about that system. Never. We're not going to let you go find it either. So the next turn is the tabletop. So tabletop refers to board games as well as pen and paper RPGs. It's simply a game that you play on a table. So when you hear Will Wheaton's tabletops and you look at it and you go, oh, it's just board games, where is the RPG aspect? It's because it's a game played on a table. But what makes it different from a pen and paper RPG is that board games tend to have like figurines and a set board and different rules. Pen and paper is a game played with pen and paper where you have a character sheet that you're writing out the information for and you're taking notes, etc. And there can and cannot be figurines and maps and boards to help you progress with the story or help lay out what's going on, but it's not necessary. What's necessary is just that information on the paper. So after that, you have the LARP. The LARP is live action roleplay. You've probably seen people beating each other up in the park in these crazy costumes. It's because when you're playing, there is the fun part of just sitting at a table, getting into your character, but sometimes people want to physically be their character. And there's an aspect of that that's really great and creative and exciting to, wear these costumes and act like your character while also playing the game. And then after that, you have the GM and the DM. So when tabletops was first becoming a thing, there was mostly Dungeons and Dragons, and so the narrator, the person who's running the game that the players are playing in, was called the Dungeon Master, the DM. But over time, as more systems came out, and they weren't exactly like D&D, and they may not have all these dungeons and things, people wanted more of a general term to use that wasn't so specific, so they came up with the GM, which is the Game Master. It's just simple, it's easy to remember. And then what you have is the PC and the NPC. So the PC is not a computer, and it's not politically correct. Okay, sometimes it's politically correct, but it doesn't stand for political correctness. It stands for the player character. And this is you, this is what you're playing, this is your personal character. But then you also have the NPC, which is often controlled by the GM. It's basically a non-player character that can be used for or against you. Now next we have the mechanics. And these are the rules of the game that make it a game. These are, how you roll a dice, etc., telling you how to do that. Within that, when you're building a character, you'll have the attributes and the skills, which all fall under the mechanics of the game. The attributes are general definition of your character. It's the overall measure of your character's physical, social, and mental abilities. So let's say you want to be faster, stronger, you will go for more physical attributes, but if you want to be more intelligent, you'll have the mental, and then if you want to talk your way out of that dungeon, you'll have the social attributes. And then you'll have the skills, which are more specific. So let's say you're that intelligent, you have all those mental attributes, and you want to specify that you want to be able to do more occult knowledge, be able to know more about the occult, then you'll get the skill occult. Same with like physical. Let's say you want to shoot a pistol, you will get the skill that's the pistol, which is more, specific. And then you're often going to hear something like the min-maxer. So this is essentially where people put more points or more numbers into a specific attribute or a specific skill to make a more effective character. So let's say you really, really want to be, that bouncer at the club and have all the brawling and the gun shooting and all that stuff. You're going to put more of your points into being able to do that, so you're stronger in that when you go to play. Versus you may say, I don't necessarily want to be able to talk my way out of things because I just want to shoot people. So you're not going to put as many points into your social attributes and your social skills because you find them kind of useless. Which means you have this imbalance of being able to do one thing really well, but the other thing not as well. But this can be a good thing. Like, you need in-game, you need people who are good at things, because if you're all good at everything but not great at everything, it can be kind of useless. And again, it can be boring because you want to be able to be important to the game, and everyone wants that. They want to be able to do something that the other person cannot do. Otherwise, what's the point of your character if someone else can do it better than you? But there's also, within the min-maxing, there's something called the Munchkin. The Munchkin is the person who breaks the game. They know how to put points into things and get certain skills and attributes that basically means when you go up against a dragon, they destroy the dragon within one turn. It's broken, it's annoying, it puts all the other characters in the dust because they're suddenly useless. If this person can destroy the dragon, what's the point of having everyone else around? It's one of the most annoying things you're going to come up against. I've come up against them a lot, certain cases. I remember playing with someone who was so munchkined out that I was talking to a dragon. I was talking to this demon dragon, and I was like getting somewhere with him, and then all of a sudden the dragon blows up. I'm just sitting there going, how the effing did this happen? And it was because behind the scenes he was talking to the GM saying, I'm doing all these spells and shit, and the dragon's gonna blow up halfway through. And that meant my character was useless, and everything I had just done in-game had been useless. Like, we could have had a dragon help us find treasure, but instead the dragon's gone, and, well, we move on to the next thing. And that's just not fun, and it's not fair to me as the player and to the other players around me. So then you're also going to see 3 more things. You're going to hear the dungeon crawl term. This is a little bit specific to Dungeons & Dragons, and this is why there's such a thing as the DM versus just the GM. The dungeon crawl is a game that's basically you go through dungeons and you kill creatures. It sometimes can be less of a role play and more of a just kill, 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 kill. And that's why it is Dungeons & Dragons. That's why it's a dungeon master, because they are telling the story of how you made your way through a dungeon and killed things. Kind of think, Legend of Zelda or something, where there is a story in the background, but essentially you're just going through destroying things and picking up objects. And then there's 2 other things you're going to hear is crunchy and rules light. And this is important for when you're going to see all the different systems. You're going to hear this term of, crunchy. That's when there's like more rules, there's more mechanics to the game. Definitely with dungeon crawls, they tend to be more crunchy because, again, it becomes more of a game where you're killing things, and so you need more rules of how to kill those things. But then you'll hear the rules light, and the rules light lends itself more to role-playing games where there's not as many rules and mechanics. It's more about being able to do things and talking your way through things, and just the improv acting of it while also playing a game. So there are the rules, but there's not as many of them, and they're easier to use and get around. So I think that's most of the terms. If I've forgotten anything, or you're playing a game and you hear something and you don't know what it means, and you are too embarrassed to ask your GM, just comment below and we'll answer as best as we can.